This is TWiT.
Big article in the Information this week, and I know Information is paywalled. A lot of you, I pay just so I can read these stories. They have very good inside sources. Wayne Ma, interviewed, I guess has a lot of sources, wrote a very interesting piece, Inside Apple's 8-year struggle to build a self-driving car. Just to give you an idea of where we're going here, subhead, Meaningless Demos, False Hopes, and Map Handicaps. Interviews with 20 people who have worked on Apple's self-driving car project shed new light on its troubled effort to build a car that can drive itself almost anywhere in the world. Now, according to Trip Mickle in his book, which I know you read, you didn't read it?
No, I didn't read it.
Oh, I'll give you my copy.
Okay.
It's worth reading. It's stories we all know, but some of the stuff from the inside we didn't know. For instance, according to Mickle's book, After Steve, the whole idea of the car project did not come from the top down. It didn't come from Tim Cook, but came from employees who said, we are mad that we're not involved in this car business, and we're going to leave for Tesla because we want to work on self-driving cars. And Tim Cook was basically blackmailed into doing this. Once you know that, a lot of this makes more sense. And it also makes me really wonder how serious management is about making this a business. What, Andy?
It's really shocking the way that this story has evolved since the first leak from the Wall Street Journal years ago. Because if you'll remember, one of the things that got all of us so excited about this was that whatever the pitch deck for this project was, when they showed it to people inside the auto industry who were top-level people, top-level executives with huge careers at the best makers, they were getting these people to quit GM, quit BMW, and go work on this project at Apple. It really did sound like something that was a priority, that they had a focus in mind. And now here we are in 2021 and 2022, where almost every 2 months we keep hearing about a critical member of the team has left and was snapped up by a competitor. You don't let people leave if you're close to something that you're really invested in. So I think this is a really good insight into is this one of Apple's other bets? If Apple listed projects the way that Google does, that this is something that we're just sort of working out. We have enough resources. We can see if this is a thing.
It's kind of
really does look like
it's kind of a moonshot.
Like another bet.
And X Project kind of.
The thing is that what they're trying to do, what everybody's trying to do, is really hard. It's hard to do it because the roads are a mess and there's people on them and there's things that go across and there's construction and so everybody is. Different people are at a different level of where they're at based on what they started with and what the requirements they've decided are okay. But I think Apple's is very high, what their expectations are, and I think that it is it's a very, very difficult thing, which is what you take on as a big company if you've got the cash to do it, because the chances of getting a lot of competition, if you're if you take on the AR, VR market, the car market, some of these are very hard to unwrap. And if you get there won't be a lot of people around you to compete. The biggest takeaway from the story is that software problems have been the biggest factor in the program's struggles. They mention, when you're talking about departures, Andy, they mentioned the departure of Ian Goodfellow, who is a very renowned machine learning scientist and a big get for the car project. He had been leading, according to Wayne Ma, writing in the Information, an effort to infuse deep learning into Apple's self-driving software. The self-driving software did well on highways, but failed miserably. It was running up on curbs and stuff on the city streets of Sunnyvale. Goodfellow's key role within Titan and the team's use of his machine learning models to improve software hasn't been previously reported. And Ma is saying that his departure actually leaves a big hole. There are a lot of people. It's been a revolving door. A lot of people have left. But you figure Apple can, get people to replace those people. But there's some like Ian Goodfellow who are at such a high level. There aren't a lot of people like him.
Tesla, obviously, because Elon Musk is obsessed with it, Tesla has been trying this a very long time. And Google's been trying this a very long time. And I think what we have to admit is that this is a very, very, very hard problem, the self-driving car part. And it may not be solved for a while, if ever. And I know that there are people out there who are like, no, full self-driving is just a year away. And hi to Elon Musk, who said that.
Yeah.
But it is like fusion. It's always a few years away, and it's not here. And that doesn't have to be a failure, right? Because there are lots of safety modes and ways to protect drivers that aren't full self-driving that take the electric car of the future forward without it being like, there are these rumors that Apple's goal was to make a full self-driving car without controls, right? And the moment I heard that, I thought that car will never ship, because it will, or at least not never, meaning like not in the next decade, because to get a car that can't be controlled by people or not easily and is just going to rely on full self-driving, like there are places where self-driving on highways could be workable now or soon, and then lots of places where it isn't. I have to wonder after WWDC last month if what Apple's really doing here is workshopping a whole bunch of car tech and figuring out what works. Because when you saw
You're talking about that CarPlay demo.
yeah, when you see that next generation CarPlay, some parts of that probably have to come from a real-time operating system. And it does make you wonder if Apple's ultimate play here may end up just being that they built a real-time operating system for Project Titan, and now they're going to work with car makers to do an Android automotive kind of move. And safety features and other features might be a part of that, but maybe it ends up being that that's the place where Apple can play. And I don't think that means Titan is necessarily a failure. I feel like they had to figure out what they could contribute, but it may not be that they can contribute a whole Apple car.
That's not a bad business to be to
Not
licensing an
necessarily,
operating system to cars. Ma says in the article that Apple it's raised the question of whether Apple's making a major business mistake by betting on nothing less than full autonomy. If that's really, I don't know if that's the case, but if they're saying no, it has to be fully autonomous, as you said, that could be, who knows?
That's dumb. If they're looking for full autonomy, or if they're looking to make an actual car product that they actually sell to consumers, that's very, very concerning. Because there's a lot of heat between advanced driver assist systems. Those are amazing. They're a real product. They work. The contribution they make to safety is amazing. Just the ability to simply say when you're about to leave a local street and you're about to take an exit for a highway on-ramp, to say, help me get onto the highway. That is a problem that these systems can absolutely do. The idea of, even on a surface street, you have permission to initiate emergency braking if it's necessary. That is also something that these systems do very, very well. All the stuff that works, all the stuff that the Department of Transportation is really, really endorsing as something we're going to support you with legislation, we're going to support you with standards. All that sort of stuff, that's software. That's not operating system level stuff. And there are already players in this game that have been doing this for 2 or 3 generations. They know how to integrate all the software into a car, which is one of them. It's almost like a space shuttle, because there's so many different systems that all have to be integrated together. Not only that, but each system has to be validated so that they're safe, so that they actually work. Imagine how difficult it is just to simply have a steering wheel that is drive-by-wire, and that's just a standard technology, that we are going to control the throttle via a wire. We're going to control the steering via a wire. All the different certifications and safety tests that have to be done just to communicate over a wire to, like, here is how we're turning and here's how the wheels could go. Imagine how much more difficult it's going to be for someone who is not like Tesla, who is not playing fast and loose with regulations, to actually put that stuff on the street.
You got to be crazy to make this stuff work. The other thing Ma says is that there's a lack of, without a Steve Jobs to power it through, there's kind of a lack of leadership. He says Tim Cook isn't, he's kind of hands off. And plus, he says some Apple executives are not rooting for Project Titan. Notably, Air Force One, Craig Federighi, has been particularly skeptical of the program over the years, according to 2 people who have heard him speak privately about it. And within other parts of Apple, Titan has become the subject of ridicule because of its chronic leadership turnover and changes in strategy that have previously prompted layoffs. Some managers have proactively warned employees to stay away from the project, according to multiple former Apple employees. Yeah. Now, you've got Kevin Lynch in there now, who is a high-level executive leading it.
Right. And you do, I mean, I think that this speaks to the lack of leadership, that you need somebody who really is a true believer and an owner of it, who is going to build a team that really believes in the product. And that's a problem when you don't know what the product is.
True.
Kevin Lynch, I believe, got the Apple Watch across the finish line. But I do wonder, again, what is the finish line? And is it, let's take the tech we've built here and see what of it is turnable into a product? And is that new CarPlay and better partnerships with car makers? I will say the one thing I admire about the full self-driving or bust mentality is there's an argument to be made that if you could crack that, you are going to be really successful. And that if you're Apple, maybe that's the only way that you should ever even consider being part of the car industry, is if you can revolutionize it. But you're setting this like failure state, essentially, which is we're shooting for the impossible. Well, guess what? It's impossible, or probably almost impossible. And then I think that's what's led them to now, which is they're in a situation where they're taking stock and saying, okay, we spent 10 years working on this stuff. What do we got?
There, according to Ma, were 4 kings running the project: Steve Zadesky, Benjamin Lyon, John Wright, and DJ Novotny, who all reported to Dan Riccio before Riccio handed off to Kevin Lynch. Riccio, although technically in charge, according to this article, remained hands-off. The de facto leader, Zadesky, an Apple vice president who had started his career as a mechanical engineer at Ford. So he was a car guy, but he left earlier this year. So this doesn't bode well for any project at any company.
You got to give a team a target. Like Apple designed the iPhone and the iPad because they were designing an iPad that they decided that in the meantime let's design an iPhone. Not because we're really interested in this multi-touch technology. What would I wonder what an operating system based on multi-touch would be like. It's like, okay, that's something that you could research for 10 to 20 years. Once you start to, that's the difference between research, science, and engineering. Engineering is all about, great, let's make a device that is exactly this big, that can cost no more than this, that is going to have battery requirements of exactly these limitations, and let's try to release it in the next 2 years. That's how you actually ship something.
Well, and I think the one thing that Apple has on its favor and to its detriment is that it doesn't need the car. It's making a lot of money.
Exactly,
so so there's not a we're going to go under if we don't figure this out, and there's also they can keep on experimenting and pushing for the big thing because they can afford to keep dumping money into it.
Yeah. The kind of the shocking revelation of this article is that the car almost ran over a jogger. In the first quarter of the year, one of Apple's test vehicles driving around 15 miles an hour almost hit a jogger who was crossing the street at an unmarked crosswalk. Apple's self-driving software, by the way, Tesla's had similar problems, I should point out.
And Waymo.
Yeah. First identified the jogger as a stationary object before recategorizing it as a stationary person, and then finally as a moving pedestrian. Now, that was all within a second, but rather than stop, the car just steered around him. This scared the backup driver. There was a human inside who slammed on the brakes. The car stopped within a few feet of the pedestrian. Apple later determined the car would have almost certainly hit the jogger if the backup driver hadn't acted, at which point Apple grounded its fleet to investigate the jogger incident. It did resume driving within a few days after fixing the identification problem and adding that crosswalk to its map space. But that just shows you how, that's onesie-twosie. How many crosswalks are there in the country, in the world? That's scary when that happens.
Andy made a really good point about Apple's strength being in producing real products and not doing this kind of. I said earlier that Andy and I went back to the 90s. 90s, Apple was really weird, and one of the things they did is a lot of pie in the sky, R&D, tech demo without a purpose and without a product. And when Steve Jobs came back, he basically said, we can't afford to do that. We need to make real products, and they've been successful doing that. I think what you're seeing with Project Titan and Waymo and a bunch of other things that are other bets, like what Google does, is you've got companies with so much money that they're willing to just, play the lottery, because they'll say, look, what if we can invent the self-driving car? We will win. Right. And if we don't, What do we lose? Some money? We got lots of that.
Right.
It's fine. And so,
especially if the employees are saying, we got to do this,
so,
we got to do this.
So is Project Titan a money pit that's not a real product and may not amount to anything? Yeah, kind of as intended.
Yeah,
sort of.
What? Although it does have an M designation, which apparently means
think there's a product
it's not
there.
blue sky. They think there might be a product there.
Sure.
But Johnny Ive has weighed in on the design. Just last bit from this article, and we'll move on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Working on the physical car design continues, according to Wayne Ma in the information. Johnny, who now works for Apple on a contract basis, has told the Titan team, this is so Johnny, lean into the weirdness of the vehicle's design and don't try to hide the sensors, said a person with direct knowledge of the discussion. The current design features 4 seats that face inward, a living room, so passengers can talk to one another, and a curved ceiling similar to the roof of a Volkswagen Beetle. So it's a little orb with a living room inside. No steering wheel, probably, right? No brake pedal.
Nope.
Designers are experimenting with a trunk compartment that rises, giving owners easier access to the storage space, and then automatically lowers. Apple designers have discussed large screens that rise from behind the seats and lower when they aren't in use. They've also discussed allowing passengers to lie flat and sleep in the vehicle. Those safety considerations could get in the way. Apple hopes to. This is actually what's most interesting to me. They are trying to get exemptions from NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, to remove the steering wheel and brakes from the car. And they actually hired NHTSA's chief counsel to help negotiate this. Good luck. And employees are now discussing how to disguise a new version of the self-driving test vehicle that more closely resembles the final version of the car Apple wants to produce and could hit the road as early as next year. So they're still doing it. They're still working.
It is an interesting aspect. The part of the, believe me, part of the research into this is simply into sociology. Where should you have a self-driving car be identifiable to other drivers as a self-driving car? Meaning that, look, this vehicle may not operate if you've trained yourself for 20 years on predicting the unpredictability of how human beings drive cars. This is not that thing. Or on the other hand, should you make it as normal as possible? Because we're already seeing that if someone in test markets where self-driving vehicles are already on the road, if other drivers know that this is a robotic vehicle, that they are going to be more of a jerk to this car because they figure out that that maybe the software is a little bit more conservative. Also, they know that they're not going to be sued by a human driver, all these sort of things. So there's just so much research that has to go into this, and maybe this is why these are always interesting research projects, and they will always be really valuable to a company like Apple, because researchers, a company like Apple needs researchers, and sometimes they really just want to work the problem, as opposed to, we know that we hired you off of this really, really incredible AI project that you got working on in Stanford. We really just want you to improve the accuracy of search results in Apple Photos. Like, no, that's not why I left academia.